somebody could not attend. Okay, and I'm gonna start sharing my desktop. All right. Remember that you can always use the chat, okay, for any question or comment, or if you face any difficulty during the session. All right, we already tested the audio and it seems it's working. So now I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Okay, and let me open the chat and the participants tab. All right, perfect. So before we start, can anybody confirm that you can see my screen and that everything is working from your end? Okay, thank you, Nawa. So it seems that you can see my screen. Okay, so as we were saying, the idea of today's session, all right, so you have been invited as ESS, MSS focal point, okay, and we are going to be providing to you some information about the recent deployment of the Umoja Travel Solution for national staff and also for militaries and non-staff. Okay, so it's going to be mainly dedicated to focal points, right? And we are going to be explaining your role as a focal point within this deployment. Okay, so let me move ahead and yes, use the chat at any time for any question or comment. So as we were saying, your role as a focal point, right? Your role as a focal point is to be the first line of support for new end users, right? That new people that are going to be using the employee self-service to raise their own travel request. Okay, so within or because of this implementation, because of this Umoja travel implementation, there are two new travelers that will access to the portal to raise their own travel request. And these two type of travelers are both national staff and individual uniform personnel. Right? So these two type of travelers will from now on have access to Umoja, to the Umoja portal, to the employee self-service to raise their own travel request. Okay, so you as a focal point, you will be contacted by national staff and even by IUPs to provide basic support and because you are using the system from cluster 4 and cluster 5, so you already know how to log into Umoja, you know what is a NIDMS account, how to connect into the Umoja portal, and you will be able to provide direct support to these new two types of travelers. Okay, so you're going to be the first line of support, but then remember that also local process experts in your mission are also available in case you have further questions or comments regarding the issues that the travelers might face. Okay. All right. So we will then connect to the Umoja DFS website, because in here you have more information about this deployment. You have the list of travel LPETs in each mission, and also your name as a focal point is also appearing there. Okay, so both national staff and IUPs will get the list of focal points from this website. Okay, and this is why we invited each of you to attend this WebEx session. All right, so let's move ahead and let's talk a little bit more about the new travelers that are new as of this implementation. So which are the new travelers? So we have two types of travelers that have access to the employee self-service to raise their own travel request. We already discussed that are national staff and IUPs. So these two types of travelers can connect to the portal and can raise their own travel requests. Then we have other types of travelers that, even though their travel requests are going to be managed from now on into Umoja, they don't have access to the portal, and all their travel requests will be done on their behalf by the travel administrators. Okay, and here we are talking about uniform personnel that are not considered individual uniform personnel. So basically, individual uniform personnel, the ones that have access to the portal, are those, or are the uniform personnel that are deployed using a commercial flight, okay, like staff officers. All right. So these militaries, or these uniform personnel that are deployed using a commercial flight, they are considered IUPs, and they have been granted with access to the portal to raise their own travel request. All the other uniform personnel that they are deployed normally as a group using a charter flight, they are uniform personnel, but they are not considered IUP, and therefore they don't have access to the portal, and all their travel requests will be done on their behalf by the travel administrators. Okay, some examples of UPs, of uniform personnel that are not IUPs, are, for example, contingents or troops. So a contingent, it's a uniform personnel, so their travel request will still be processed in Umoja, but they don't have access to the portal, and all their travel requests will be done on their behalf. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, so I try to mute you all because I was hearing some noise. If you have questions, just please use the chat for that purpose. Okay. So let's come back to the what we were mentioning before. So UPs are part of the travelers that are included in this deployment, but they don't have access to the portal. The same thing for UMVs, for volunteers. UN volunteers, they don't have access to the portal, and all their travel requests will be done by the travel administrator. Same thing for consultants. Same thing for individual contractors, and for all other non-staff categories, like meeting participants, fellows, and so on. Okay, so all these traveler types are from now on managed, or all the travel requests for all these traveler types are managed in Umoja, but we have to differentiate those with access to the portal, the first two. So national staff and IUPs will have access to the portal to make their own travel request, and all the ones appearing here in the slide in red color, they don't have access to the portal, and all their travel requests will be done on behalf by the travel administrators. Okay, so this is the first thing you need to consider, and as a focal point, you are meant to provide support on how to connect into the portal, basically to national staff and to IUPs, right? Travel administrators were trained directly by the LPTs in your mission, and the same thing for certifying officers or for travel processing officers. So all these kind of more advanced users, like travel administrators or TSAs, they were trained by the LPTs in your mission, and they can always contact the LPTs. So as a focal point, you should mainly target the first two traveler types, national staff and IUPs, that are the one that will connect to the portal to raise their own travel request. Okay, so travel administrators, we have some questions. Travel administrators is the role in the system to raise travel requests on behalf of other people, right? So there might be a travel administrator in each section raising travel requests, for example, on behalf of national staff in case they don't have access to the system, or for UN volunteers. So travel administrators are the ones raising travel requests on behalf of other people. Okay. All right. So as we were saying, because we have some questions in the chat. So as a focal point, you are mainly responsible for providing support to end users, and the only end users at this stage are national staff and IUPs. Because for UN volunteers and for consultants, all travel requests will be done on behalf by the travel administrator. All right. You can still hear me, right? We have some comments saying that you cannot. I mean, that somebody cannot hear me. Can anybody confirm? Okay, thank you, Nawa. So it has to be something from. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's continue. So end users. So as we were saying, travel LPTs trained all the transactional roles, meaning certifying officers, TPOs, and travel administrators. But regarding end users, national staff, and IUPs, they didn't receive face-to-face training because they are all over the different regions. And the training strategy for national staff and for IUP have been to publish distant learning materials that they can access whenever they need. Okay. So the following video recordings have been published in the Umoja DFS website, the one that we will connect later on. So they will have a video on how to log into Umoja production. There is another video on how to raise a travel request in the system, and another one on how to raise an expense report. Okay. The recordings we will show to you that are available in the Umoja DFS website, and in particular there are two different pages, one for national staff, the link appearing here, and one for IUPs as a different page. Okay. All national staff should have received a broadcast with these distant learning materials, and the same thing for IUPs. Okay, so they have the video recordings and they can request access to the training environment to practice by themselves. Okay, and as always, job aids are always published for additional details. Okay, about a particular topic. Okay, so the website for the Umoja job aids remains the same as always. Okay, and you have here the link also to the travel job aids in the umoja.un.org website. All right. Okay, so before we move into the next slide, let me show to you the web page. Okay, so this is the umoja.un.org DFS page. This is the one we were referring to in the presentation. Okay, and it's the page for DFS regarding the Umoja implementation, and the first thing that it appears is the information related to the current travel deployment, the one we just went live last 15th June. Okay, and here you have the different population that is involved in this implementation. We were saying national staff, IUPs, uniformed personnel, and so on. And in here, the end users can find the distance learning material. As we were saying, there is one page for the IUPs and another page for the national staff members. Okay, there are other job aids, and here below you have the deployment coordinators in each mission, the list of focal points, right? The ones, I mean, from here we got the list of people that have been designated as a focal point in each mission, and also the list of travel LPs, right? The ones, so in case you need further help in your mission, here you have the list of travel LPs in each mission. Okay. All right. The same thing for the focal points, and then the distance learning materials. We were saying there are 2 pages, and here, before I had problems with the video. Okay, so here you have the video training materials. So there is 1 page for the 1 video on how to log in into Moya Production, another video on how to raise a travel request. Okay, so today we are having an issue with the videos. Okay, but they were, I mean, I've seen that they were working in other missions, but here in the RSC we are having today an issue with the videos in YouTube, because they are published there in YouTube and they can be played directly from the page. So there is a video on how to raise a travel request, another one on how to raise an expense report, and then they can take the assessment by using this link, okay, and they will get the certificate in Inspira. Right, so they can take this assessment with 10 questions for 10 questions regarding their access into the portal, and if they want to get access to the training environment, they can send their request here. We've got more than 100 requests coming from IUPs for the training environment. Okay, so in case you also want to practice in the training environment, you can also send your request using the same page. And the last video they have available is the video on how to access the training environment. Okay, and the same thing for the same thing applies for national staff. So national staff have a very similar page with the videos. Right, the videos are very similar, but the travel request and the expense report are slightly different. And then for the assessment, they can, as they are staff, they can just enroll themselves in the Inspira and take their certificate directly in Inspira. Okay, and the same thing applies for the training environment. So they can also request access to the training environment to do exercises and to raise travel requests using the training environment. Okay, so I just wanted to show to you the pages that are available for training materials. Okay, but from here, from the Umoja DFS website, they have all the links that are required to access training materials, job aids, and the list of focal points and LPs. Okay, so let's move back and let's continue with our presentation. So the idea is to review 3-4 slides more, and then we will connect to the training environment to show to you live in the system how the new screens look like. Okay. So for national staff, keep in mind that national staff can raise all their travel requests by themselves. So they can raise any official travel request using the employee self-service. So travel administrators will not be that involved in the to raise travel requests for national staff. Okay, so we have again comments about the audio connectivity. What about the rest? I can see 3-4 people complaining about the audio. Can anybody hear me? Can hear? Okay, so it seems it's okay. So let me put again that one. All right. So I think some missions are facing some audio problems, but it has to be something from the end. Okay. I remind you that we are recording the session, so in case you missed the beginning, you can just hear the recording later on. Okay, so we will share this presentation to all of you. Okay, and we will also share the link to the recorded session. So as we were saying about national staff can raise any type of travel request they need, right? Mainly the travel request within the official travel category, so no need to have a travel administrator raising travel requests on their behalf. All right, and then in case the trip is with a UN flight, remember that the EMOP in FSS is still required. Okay, so if the travel request involves a UN flight, the national staff or the IUP will still need to raise an MOP request in FSS to have their seat booked in the UN flight. So EMOP is still required in FSS in case of UN flights. The same thing applies for security clearance and medical clearance. Okay, so these requests are still out of Umoja. So the traveler is still required to raise, if needed, the MOP, the security clearance, and the medical clearance. Okay. The only thing that is replaced by Umoja, it's the old PT8 that used to be in FSS. Now it's fully replaced by the travel request in Umoja. Okay, so PT8 is fully replaced by Umoja. The same thing for F10s. The F10s is the old spend report that used to be submitted in FSS. Now F10s are submitted, or the spend report is submitted in Umoja from now on. Okay, we went live with the system. We went live in the system the 15th of June. So before that date, travelers were still raising their PT8s in FSS. So all the PT8s that were raised in FSS have to be finished in FSS with an F10 claim. Right. So, and travelers have until the 31st of July to complete all the PT8s that were submitted in FSS. So if the PT8 was submitted in FSS, it has to be completed with an F10 document in FSS. If from 15th June onwards, all travel requests should be now in Umoja and not in FSS any longer. Okay. All right. So let's review a little bit the different steps. Okay, to have now in Umoja to have a travel request and an expense report in Umoja. So it's important that you keep in mind that not only for national staff, but for any type of traveler, an index number and an HR master record, it's required in order to travel any type of traveler. So regardless if it's a national staff, regardless if the traveler it's an IUP, or if it's a consultant or a UMB, all travelers that are traveling with a travel request in Umoja will need both the index number and the HR master record. Okay? For national staff, it's created as part of their onboarding process, right? For example, for consultants, right? All the existing consultants that before had only business partner have all of them been migrated, and now they have HR master record, and they can also travel using the Umoja solution. Okay, but keep in mind that index number and HR master record are always required in order to travel somebody. So if the traveler doesn't have a proper HR master record, they will not be able to travel, or the travel request will not be able to be submitted in Umoja, and you will need to contact the HR section in your mission. Okay, so the travel request process for national staff, the travel request is created directly by the national staff, so they can raise any type of travel request. And the approval process is the same as for international staff, right? So once the travel request is fully approved, it's submitted by the national staff, it will be reviewed first by the certifying officer, what we call in the system the TSA, the travel shipment approver. And once certifying officer has approved the travel request, it will be reviewed and approved by the travel processing office, that are these two roles, right? The TB10 or the TB20, right? The commercial travel processing office, the one dealing with the travel vendors, and the non-commercial travel processing office, that is the TB20, that they only deal with travel requests that don't have any commercial ticket involved. Okay, the TB20 role is a new role, it's a new TPO role that has been implemented in this deployment, and they will deal only with the non-commercial travel requests. Okay, so right now the population that will travel within mission has increased a lot because we expect a lot of national staff and a lot of IUPs to travel within mission without a commercial mode of travel, using, for example, UN flight or UN vehicle. And a new role, a new TPO role, that is the non-commercial TPO, has been created to improve or to accelerate the approval of those non-commercial travel requests. We have a question regarding contingent members, right? So the question it's asking if the contingent members will also need index numbers and HR master records. So for you to remember, if a travel request needs to be raised in Umoja for anybody, I mean, no matter the traveler type, no matter if it's a contingent member, no matter if it's a UN volunteer, they always need an index number and an HR master record. So if a contingent member needs to travel within mission, let's say, an index number and an HR mini master record will have to be created to be able to raise their travel request. Remember that contingent members will not have access to the portal, so their travel request will be raised on their behalf by the travel administrators. But the contingent member will still need the index number and the HR mini master, because otherwise in Umoja we cannot raise their travel request. Okay, all right. So yes, it's very simple. If we need to raise any travel request for anybody in Umoja, an index number and an HR master record is required, and there are HR master records for all types of person. So we have master records for staff, for national staff. We have master records for volunteers, for military personnel. So for any type of person, HR can create the HR master record to allow that person to travel in Umoja. All right. So let me rephrase the part of TB10 and TB20, the commercial and non-commercial TPOs, because I'm seeing some questions regarding that. Right. So TB10, it's the commercial TPO, and they are dealing with travel request that includes commercial tickets. So if the national staff created a travel request that includes any commercial ticket, for example, a commercial airline, then the travel processing office will be the commercial one. If the national staff is traveling within mission and only with non-commercial means, like UN vehicle or UN flight, then the travel request will go to the TB20, to the non-commercial TPO. So if there is no ticket involved, we don't have to liaise with any travel vendor, then the TPO role is the TB20, the one that doesn't deal with travel vendors. Okay, so that's the process to raise and approve travel request, then after travel request has been fully approved, in case there is a ticket involved, finance will process the invoice sent by the vendor and will pay the vendors. And after the trip has completed, so after the national staff has returned from the trip, the national staff will be able to submit the related expense report. Right, the related expense report related to the fully approved travel request. So the general case, so 99% of the cases, the expense reports will be submitted in relation to an approved travel request. Right? We also have the concept of standalone expense reports. Okay, and we already have some questions about that. Okay. Okay. So please remember to mute your microphone. Okay. Thank you. All right. So as we were saying, the 99% of the cases will be always travel request fully approved, and afterwards the expense report will be submitted in relation to the approved travel request. Okay. In case the travel request is for, in case the trip is for less than 3 days and there is no travel advance and there is no commercial ticket, the traveler has the option to submit standalone expense report, right? As the same rules applies as for international staff. Okay, but that's only in the exceptional case of an urgency, kind of the national staff is asked to go, right, for less than 3 days with no travel advance and with no commercial ticket, and it's an urgent trip. So in that case, that's why standalone expense report were somehow open to make it easier for national staff members to submit the standalone expense report after coming back from travel. But if the trip is planned and the national staff member can submit a travel request, it's always the best option. So if there is time to submit a travel request and get that approved before the trip, it's always the best approach. So I would propose always, if it's possible, to do the travel request and get it approved, and that the staff member will always get their advance, and then they can submit the related expense report. So the standalone expense report process should only be used in the exceptional cases where the staff member is asked to travel urgently, okay, for less than 3 days, no advance, and no commercial tickets. Okay. So the expense report will be, in general, raised in relation to an approved travel request, and then the approval process for the expense report is the same as for the international staff, the one that is currently existing. So if there are changes in the amount to be paid or to be recovered because of the advance, then it will be, the expense report will go for approval to the TSA and later on to the travel claims processor. Okay. If there are no changes compared to the advance that was paid, the expense report will be automatically approved by the system, okay, because the expense report matches with the amount paid in the travel request. So in that case, the expense report is automatically approved, and this is what we call in the system the express expense report. Okay. All right. So this, you can see that the approval steps and the process is the same as we have today for international staff. We have some more questions regarding the index number and HR master record for non-staff. So who's going to create the index numbers and the HR master record? So for any question regarding this HR process, the HR section in your mission should be able to provide you with more information. Okay. So depending on the non-staff, for example, for UMBs, index numbers are created directly by the UN entity in Bonn, okay, and the HR master record is created by the HR section in each mission. But in case you have questions about who is creating what in the index numbers and HR master record, please talk to your HR partners in your mission. So they are the ones that are really mastering this part, okay, the index number and the HR master record creation for non-staff and for staff. Okay. All right. So this was the approval process for national staff. Okay. If you want to ask questions, please use the chat. All right. So you can ask your question in the chat. I'm trying to reply to all your questions live while we are reviewing the presentation. Okay. So Lisa, because I can see that you wanted to ask something about the Express Spend Report approval. So you can just pose your question in the chat, and I'll try to approve it. Okay. We just. All right. And if I'm not able to approve your, to answer to your question, you can always raise it by email. Okay. All right. So let's now focus on the IUP part. Okay. So how IUPs will be able to raise travel requests and spend reports in the system. So IUPs, remember that we are talking about the uniformed personnel that are deployed with a commercial ticket. The ones that are the uniformed personnel that are deployed as a group in a charter are not considered individual UPs, and they will not have access to the portal. So for those that are IUPs, they will have access to the employee self-service, but they will only be able to raise travel requests that are within mission area and when no commercial ticket is required. So even if IUPs have access to the portal, they will only be able to raise travel requests for within mission when no commercial ticket is required. Therefore, if they need to travel outside mission area, or even if it's within mission area, but they need a commercial ticket, they will not be able to do it by themselves, and they will have to contact the travel administrator that will have to raise the travel request on behalf of the uniformed personnel. Okay, and here we are. So you can see that the within mission travel is the only travel type that IUPs can raise by themselves. If it's outside mission area, travel administrator. We have some questions about repatriation or deployment. So repatriation or deployment or medical evacuation of IUPs, all these travel types are done by the travel administrator. So travel administrator will be able to raise more travel requests on behalf of the IUP. So the IUP themselves are only able to raise within mission travel requests. So these are the most common travels, okay, the most common trips for an IUP. So the system was designed to allow IUPs to raise their most common travel request type that are within mission. So IUPs travel regularly within mission area with no commercial ticket, right? For the other ones that involve commercial ticket or which are more complex, the travel administrator will do it on their behalf. Remember that IUPs stay in the mission area for a short period, for 6 months or a little bit more. So the system has been designed to make it easier for them to select the proper travel type, and that's why the most exceptional cases of traveling outside mission area or with a commercial ticket have been left for the travel administrator to do it on behalf of the IUP. Okay. All right. So talking about access to the portal, national staff already had access to the portal because they were managing all their leave requests, right, in Umoja, as from cluster 5. But IUPs, they are accessing the portal for the very first time. Okay, so we are undergoing the same type of procedure we went through in cluster 5. So right now, almost IUP should have received their Unite ID activation email because they need the Unite ID user account in order to access Umoja. Okay, the same thing we did for cluster 5. So in this Unite ID activation email, they can set their own password, they can set their own security questions to be able to log into the portal. Okay, so the IUP should have received the email. So if they have received the email, they can follow the instructions to get their EIDMS account activated. There has been some issues with the Unite ID activation emails, and some of the IUPs haven't received yet the activation email. But we expect to have all the email activation emails sent by this Sunday, so you can indicate to your IUPs that if they haven't, they should always check their spam folder and their inbox. But in case they check and they haven't received their Unite ID activation email, they should receive it before this Sunday. Okay, so all the activation emails should be sent before that date. And in case there is any urgent trip, so in case there is an urgent trip for an IUP that hasn't received their activation email, they can always count on their travel administrator who will be able to raise their travel request on their behalf. Okay. So that's for the question asked by Non. Okay, so in case there is an urgent travel for an IUP that is within mission, non-commercial, okay, and you have this specific IUP that hasn't received yet their activation email, if they need to travel, they can contact the travel administrator who will raise their travel request on their behalf, right? So who are travel administrators? So travel administrators, for it's a specific role in Umoja, right? So not, you're asking if focal points are travel administrators? No. So you as a focal point, you are meant to provide support. I mean, to provide instructions on how to log into the portal, on how to raise it. But you are not supposed, if you are not a travel administrator, you are not supposed to do anything on behalf of an IUP. All right. So in order to raise a travel request on behalf of an IUP or a travel request on behalf of a UMV, you should have the travel administrator role in Umoja. Okay. And normally there are, for example, here in the RSC, there are specific unit that deals with uniformed personnel, and they have a bunch of travel administrators that, for example, raises all the deployment travel requests for uniformed personnel. Okay, or they create all repatriation travel requests, or all the travel requests for outside mission area for IUPs. Okay. So yes, travel administrators are a specific role in Umoja. All right, so let's move ahead. So for an IUP, it's only able, as we said, to raise within mission, non-commercial travel requests, and the process is very similar compared to what we discussed before for national staff. They also need an index number and an HRM master record, and it's also created as part of their onboarding process. So specifically for IUPs, their their deployment trip is also raised in Umoja by the travel administrators, right? So this deployment trip cannot be raised with a proper index number and an HR minimaster. So by the time the IUP needs to raise within mission travel request, they are going to have already an HR minimaster record because their deployment trip was already raised. So IUPs will always have a proper HR minimaster record because their deployment trip was already raised and processed in Umoja. So the travel request for within mission area and the non-commercial is raised by the IUP, and the approval process is the same one, right? It's approved by the TSA first, by the certifying officer, and then reviewed and approved by the TB20, the non-commercial ones. So in the case the IUP is the one raising the travel request, is going to be always the non-commercial TPO. Okay, the non-commercial TPO, it's the one that will deal with all the requests raised by the IUPs, because as we were saying, all travel requests coming from an IUP will always be non-commercial. Okay. All right. So we have questions about, again, this travel administrator. So how can you know in your mission who is the travel administrator? So there are travel administrators who deals with uniformed personnel, travel administrators who deals with UN volunteers, and travel administrators who deal, for example, for consultants or individual contractors. All right. So talk to your travel unit. So your travel unit should, or your HR unit should be able to help you on that, right? There should be a specific unit in your mission that deals with that. I mean, it's also available in the system, so we can extract the list of people that have been mapped with that role for each mission. And in particular, we are having sessions, a WebEx session for travel administrator UPs tomorrow, okay, with all the travel administrators for UPs. So I'm sure that, yeah, so thank you, Suda. That's a very good answer. All right. So yeah, Suda is proposing to ask the SLO, right? The one granting the different roles in Umoja, right? The SLO should be able to tell you who are the travel administrators. So in particular, you're asking about the travel administrator for UP that has the role TB05. You can contact the SLO, the one that is granting Umoja access in the missions, to tell you who are mapped in your mission as travel administrator UP. Okay, thank you, Suda, for the proposal. Okay, all right. What else? Regarding the okay, we have some questions regarding the EMOP. Okay, and so remember that the EMOP, it's still needed if in FSS if there is a UN flight involved. So the travel request in Umoja is replacing the PT8, but not the EMOP. So PT8, it's fully replaced by the travel request in Umoja, but the EMOP, it's still required if there is a UN flight involved. Okay. Yeah. All right. So remember, if the travel request is raised by the individual uniformed personnel, it has to be approved by the TSA, by the travel shipment approver, that is the certifying officer in the mission. Always, okay? And then after the certifying officer has approved the travel request, then the travel processing officer, the TPO, the one that deals with the one that deals with the non-commercial travel request, we still need to approve the travel request. So there are always two steps approval for any kind of travel request. right? So the travel request needs to be approved first by the certifying officer, and secondly by the travel processing office light, the travel processing office for non-commercial. Okay. Then, in this case, there is no ticket billing involved, okay, because the IUP always raises non-commercial tickets, and the IUP can also raise the expense report. So if the travel request was raised by the IUP will also raise the expense report, and the approval process for the expense report is the same one we saw before. So if there are no changes in the expense report, it will be automatically approved by the system. If there are changes in the amount to be paid or to be recovered, it will have to be approved or reviewed again by the certifying officer, by the travel shipment approver, and later on by the travel claims processor, the TCP, the one reviewing all the expense reports. Okay. Remember that this process applies to within mission area non-commercial. We have a question. So what if the trip is outside mission area with a UN flight? Will the IUP be able to raise their travel request? So let's give an example. An IUP traveling from Entebbe to Bangui, or no, sorry, to Juba with a UN flight, right? So the IUP is traveling from Entebbe to Juba with a UN flight. Will the IUP be able to raise the travel request? Yes or no? What do you think? You can use the two buttons. You have a button with a red cross and a button with the with a green check. Okay, you can use it to answer. So let's say an IUP needs to travel from Entebbe to Juba with a UN flight. Will the IUP be able to raise their own travel request? Yes or no? I cannot see many responses yet. So please use the button. Okay. So let me repeat the question. So we have an IUP that needs to raise a travel request to go from Entebbe to Juba, where there is a UN flight. So will the IUP be able to raise the travel request by themselves, or he will have to contact the their travel administrator? So he's going from Entebbe, that is Uganda, right? The RSE, to Juba, that is AMIS. Okay, so he's okay. Right. So we have most of the answers. We have majority of yes, right? So let me repeat it because the answer is no. Okay, so let me repeat again. So two conditions. In order the IUP to raise their own travel request, the trip has to be within mission area. That's the first condition that needs to apply. And in the example we were giving, that trip is not within mission area because Entebbe and Juba don't belong to the same mission, right? Unless, okay, Entebbe is part of the mission area. Is Entebbe part of AMIS? I know that Entebbe is part of MONUSCO, so it's the MONUSCO have a base here, right? Okay. Yeah. So I would say even if you have a UN flight, they are not part of the same mission, right? So MONUSCO, I'm sure that they have the Entebbe is considered part of MONUSCO too, but I would say that is not part of the of AMMIS, right? So I wouldn't say that that is part of within mission. Okay, so I would say that is outside mission area. Traveling from Entebbe to Juba, I would say it's outside mission area, and therefore, even if there is a UN flight, that shouldn't be within mission area, and that should be a regular official, right? A regular official travel request outside mission area. Okay, so even if it's free of cost, right? The trip is still outside mission area. So therefore, the IUP would not be able. Yeah. So supposing, yeah, in the other example, if it's from Entebbe to Goma, as both of them are within mission area, and there is a UN flight, in that case, yes. Okay. So Josephine is saying that it's within. I mean Entebbe and Juba. All right. So we have to confirm that one. Okay. So Josephine, thank you for your input. But so keep in mind that the two things. So the two things are required, right? So only if it's within mission area and there is no commercial flight, in that case you can. I mean, the IUP will be able to raise the travel request by themselves. Okay, I will confirm later on the particular example about Entebbe and Juba. Okay, but the other example that for sure is true. It's the Entebbe Goma, right? Entebbe Goma are within mission area for MONUSCO people, right? So the IUP traveling from Goma to Entebbe with a UN flight, that's for sure within mission area and non-commercial, and they can raise the travel request by themselves. Okay. Then we have the other example. We have let's say in UNSOS, right? We can have trips within mission area that are commercial. For example, an IUP traveling from Nairobi to Mombasa, it's still within mission area for UNSOS, but in that case there is no UN flight, but there is a commercial ticket. Okay. So the same thing, the IUP will not be able to raise it by themselves, and it will have to be raised by the administrator. Okay. All right. So thank you, Florence, for the feedback. All right. So that particular example of Juba and the Entebbe, we will clarify later on. So yes, as you can see in this, Richard, as you can see in this screen, if the IUP raised the travel request, right? So if the IUP is raising the travel request, the IUP is also responsible for raising the spend report. Okay, so after the IUP has come back from travel, it will raise the spend report using the portal as national staff or as international staff do. Okay. All right. So that's the only slides I wanted to show to you. Okay. So let me now log in into the training environment. Okay, and show to you the slides. The screens. Okay. So I'm gonna connect into a training environment, but remember, I think you're already familiar with that, but in order to connect, so both national staff, they need to use the login to Moya self-service, right? Not the one for production systems. So they are all using this login to Umoja, right? This one. Okay, they are using the login to Umoja self-service because they are only connecting to the portal. They don't need to connect to ECC, so they can just use the login to Umoja self-service, and with their EIDMS account, they will connect to the portal to raise their own travel request. Okay, and this is why they need to activate their Unite ID accounts to be able to raise the travel request. Okay, so let me now use the training environment. Okay, so let me see if I can connect from here. Right, so service. Okay, so this will drive me to the self-service. Okay, so they can connect to the portal. This will be the production portal. Okay, so I want to use the training environment, so I'm going to use a different path. Okay, but that's only for training environment purposes. Okay, so for production is the same link I was showing to you before. They can use the self-service. So for training environment, I'm connecting to the dashboard. Okay, and from there, I'm going to try to open the portal, but in training environment. All right. Okay, so the training environment portal will appear. Okay, and then we are going to connect with the IUP account or with the national staff account, and we'll try to raise a travel request, and we want to talk also a little bit about the spend report. Right? Okay, so now we are connected as in the training environment. Okay, let me use a user account in the training environment, and I'm going to connect as an IUP. Okay, and you will see how the screens have been configured for an IUP. So this is, you can see that this is the screens that the IUP will see. You can see that they will basically see only one tab, that is the IUP self-service tab, and only basically one link that will drive them to the Traveler Work Center, the Traveler Work Center for IUPs, for individual uniform personnel. So if they click on this Traveler Work Center, the system will drive them to the regular Travel Work Center, where they can see the travel request that they have raised, or even the travel request that have been raised by the administrators on behalf of the IUP. Okay, so the Travel Work Center, it's important because from there they will be able to see the status, right? The status of the different travel requests. For example, here we can see the different numbers, right? So we can see the first one that it corresponds to a within mission, right? Within mission travel. And we can even see here the destination. So we have a bunch of within mission travel requests that are the ones that the IUP can raise by themselves. And then we have other type of travel. For example, this training, it's another type of travel, and it cannot be raised directly by the IUP. So if they go for training outside mission area, for example, they cannot raise the travel request by themselves. It has to be done or raised by the travel administrator. The same thing for GT1. That is the travel request for the deployment of the IUP. So this travel request, the 66106 appearing in the Work Center, was the deployment travel request that was created by the travel administrator to deploy the IUP into the mission area. Okay, so in the Traveler Work Center, the IUP will be able to see all the travel requests created by them or by the travel administrator. And as you can see, we can see even the index number of the IUP. So all the travelers, in the end, they will have their own index number that will trigger all the transactions in the portal. Okay. Another important thing in the Traveler Work Center. In the Traveler Work Center, it's very important to check the status. Okay. So what do we mean by the status? So from here, for each travel request, the IUP will be able to see the status of the travel request. So the first one, for example, the status is submitted, and it's awaiting certifying officer approval. Same for the second one. Okay, the third one was was saved, but it was not even submitted. The fourth, fifth, and sixth, they are fully approved. So from the Traveler Work Center, it's where the IUPs and any other type of traveler, from where they can understand the status of the travel requests. Okay. So yes, Sudha, in the Traveler Work Center, the IUPs are able to see all travel requests that are related to them, the ones that they raised by themselves and the ones that were raised on their behalf by the travel administrators. Okay, and this is what we were checking in this particular example. So in here we are connected in the portal as an IUP. That's why we can only see the IUP self-service tab, and in the Traveler Work Center, we can see the within mission travel requests and also the deployment travel request that was raised by the travel administrator on behalf of the IUP. Okay. So it's very important to check. So when they cannot find the travel request, when they didn't take note of the travel request number, the screen to go to look for more information, it's always the Traveler Work Center. So there they should be able to see all their travel requests. Okay, they will be able to see the dates, the trip dates, the travel category, destination, travel purpose, and what we were mentioning before, the important part of the workflow status, right, and the recommended actions. As we were saying, the ones that are fully approved, like this one, TPO approved, okay, and the ones that are only submitted, or for example, the last one appearing here, that the certifying officer already approved, but is still waiting for the last approval. Okay, so in here, for example, the last one, it was fully approved by the certifying officer, but it's saying still the recommended action awaiting travel claims unit approval. So based on what we saw in our slides, what would you think is the status of this travel request? The one that says CO approved, await travel claims approval. Any idea? So for travel request 65973, that says CO approved, and then recommended action await travel claims unit approval. Was the travel request fully approved or not? What do you think? Okay. So most people are saying that it's not fully approved. Okay. It was only certified. All right. So here, so by this workflow status and recommended actions, we can understand that the travel request was fully approved, right? So the travel request was fully approved, but then the expense report, the related expense report, was submitted, right, and certified already by the certifying officer. And the only pending step is the approval of the expense report by the travel claims unit. The travel claims unit is the one reviewing the expense reports. Okay, so if the expense report was already submitted and certified, is because it was the travel request was fully approved, but we are only missing for that particular trip, we are only missing the last step approval for the expense report. Remember, as we were saying in this slide. So you can see here, right? So the travel request was fully approved, right? The expense report was submitted and approved by the TSA. So for that particular trip, we are missing this step. Sorry, we are missing step number 6, the approval by the travel claims processor, the approval by the travel claims unit. And this is what it says here, await travel claims unit. So you can see that the travel request trip number 65973, we already have an expense report submitted and certified by the certifying officer. Okay, 65973. Here you have all the different trips, but remember that if the IUP or the staff member submits an expense report related to a travel request, the trip number is the same, both for the travel request and for the expense report. Okay, so this 65973, it's also the number for the expense report. Is that clear? Okay. All right, good. So how can we, as an IUP, how can I only have two options. One, to submit a travel request, and another one to submit an expense report. So to submit a travel request, I only have the option to submit an official travel, so no entitlement travel, no HR travel, so I can only raise official travel. So I'm going to click there in the create official travel, and this is what an IUP will see, right? In this case, it's a military observer, and this is what they will see if they try to raise their own travel requests. So always the travel category will be official travel, and the only travel type that will be allowed for an IUP, as you can see in the screen, will be within mission travel type. That's why we were saying that if the trip is outside mission area, the IUP will not be able to do it by themselves, but they will need to request the assistance of the travel administrator. Okay, so they don't have the option to select um, official business or training. They only have the option to select travel type within mission. That is the only one allowed for IUPs to select. Okay, so this is the reflection in the system about what we meant by within mission. Okay, then they will need to check, or they will need to mark the option to confirm that the supervisor has agreed on their leaves, and they will click on next on general data button. So what about the leave management? So will IUPs raise their leave request in Umoja? What do you think? Yes or no? Yeah, so the question was national staff for sure, right? So as a national staff already started in cluster 5 to raise their leave requests, right? Their annual leave and uncertified sick leave and all the other leave requests in Umoja. What about IUPs? Because here in this screen we are checking that the supervisor has agreed to my travel and approved any applicable leave. So will IUPs use Umoja to raise their leave request? Yes or no? What do you think? Okay, so we have, yeah, you are right. Most of you are right. So leave management for IUPs is not in Umoja yet, right? So as of now, they are still using the old system, okay, to raise their leave requests. Okay, so they still use the same system as they were using before. No changes on the leave requests for IUPs. Okay. So now I'm going to click on General Data to go to the next screen. Okay, so it's still loading, and in the next screen is where the IUP will be able to select the journey type that normally for within mission area is going to be round trip. Okay, and then they will be able to specify the work start and the work start and end dates. Okay, so let's say that I'm planning to travel next week. Okay, for 4 days, and in the travel purpose they can indicate the purpose of the travel. So let's say view security situation in the region, and at the bottom of the screen, I mean, they can specify any special instructions, and at the bottom they will be able to specify the itinerary. Okay, they have to specify here the official itinerary, not the one with the personal deviation, and non-stopovers unless there is an overnight or a change in the mode of transportation. Okay, so only the origin and destination. So we can indicate here the start date, okay, for the trip. In the departure, as always, they can type, okay, so let's say I'm going to travel from Entebbe, all right, from Entebbe, and here in the mode of travel is where the system is restricting the IUP to raise official travel requests. So you can see that the option 01, that is the commercial airline, is not available for an IUP. Okay, so if they want to go, for example, from Entebbe to Bangui, okay, with a commercial airline, they cannot do it, and they will have to ask the help from the travel administrator. Right? So they can only use non-commercial, like a UN vehicle or UN aircraft. Okay. So this is how the system is preventing the IUP to raise commercial travel requests. So let's put the arrival date and the arrival city. So let's say he's going to Goma. Okay. And in the yes, okay, thank you, Lisa. Right, so the arrival date should be June. Okay, thank you. In the applicable subsistence, it's where they have to select. So DSA is mainly for staff members, not for IUPs, and the IUPs they get their monthly their monthly MSA, but because of the travel, they might be entitled to other parts of the MSA, right? And that's why they will need to select the appropriate MSA option available in the applicable subsistence field, right? Depending on the selection here, the amount or the calculated amount by the system as subsistence allowance will be one or another one. Okay, so based on the components provided at the destination, let's say the accommodation might be provided at destination, or the meals, or the other components in the MSA, right? The IUP will have to select one or another option here. Okay, so that will depend on each mission, right? And also will depend on the components provided at the destination, right? So talking about meals or talking about accommodation, and that will trigger the applicable subsistence calculated automatically by the system. So for example, if as an IUP I select MSA full, right, that will have an impact in the applicable subsistence calculated by the system, right? So for example, yeah, if I select MSA full, you will see that the rate will be different. So let me complete the itinerary, and later on I'll show to you the calculation. So I included the way in, okay, the first leg in the itinerary. Let me copy the line and put the return leg, the way out, and let's say we will come back on the 29th from Goma using a UN aircraft, 29th, and the destination is going to be Entebbe. Okay. All right. So that will be the second leg of the trip, right? And then they have the option to indicate if there's going to be any personal deviation related to that travel request. So normally it's going to be no, and if they select yes, they will need to indicate what kind of deviation they are having, what would be the requested itinerary, and all the other details related to the personal deviation. So if they select no, and we click on additional data, the system will drive us to the second screen where the IUP will be able to indicate if they are transporting any firearm. Okay, this is basically important in case we are traveling with an airplane, right? And you can see that the estimated cost has been automatically calculated based on the MSA rate and based on the itinerary, right? So this estimated cost is $656 as subsistence allowance have been calculated, taking into account the itinerary and the subsistence allowance selected in the previous screen. right? So in the previous screen, we selected the dates and we selected MSA full. If we change the dates and we make it shorter, or even if we change the applicable subsistence rate and we select another option, the calculation done by the system will be different, right? So in the fourth option, so with the MSA full, it was 600. With the other option, it was reduced, okay, because it's considered that the accommodation or even the meals were provided at destination. So one way to change the MSA to be paid because of the travel is to change the MSA rate. This amount can also be changed using the deductions button, right? The same thing that international staff are using with the to reduce by percentages the amount, okay? But this is basically reducing the amount by percentage, and if I'm not mistaken, this applies more to DSA and not that much to MSA, right? But if you apply 50% of deduction, the system will automatically reduce the amount, right? You can see that the amount was reduced automatically by entering the deductions, okay? The amount can also be changed directly using the enter estimated cost, right? So it can be changed here, or even IUPs can add new expenses. So for example, they can add a new line in the estimated costs, and they can add other expenses like military accommodations, meals, vaccines, medical expenses, right? So additional expenses are available for IUPs to be included in the travel request. Okay. They have the option to select to request advance in the travel request. If they select yes, they have the option to indicate if they want a bank transfer. The EFT means bank transfer, and they will be able to select their bank account, or if they want to be paid by check or by cash, they can select other and type cash or check, okay? And they can change the cost assignment, that is, both the cost assignment and the travel processing office is defaulted based on the HR profile of the IUP. The cost assignment, they can change it, so if another cost center is paying for that particular trip, they can go into the cost assignment and change the cost center. And all right, and from there, that will be the last field to be included, and they can submit their travel request. So with that, they can just go to review and send, right? So let's put cash as payment method, and they can go and review and send the travel request. Okay, so that will be the process to submit a travel request for an IUP. For national staff is very similar, right? The travel request process is very similar. The difference is that basically they have more travel types that they can select, not only within mission area, and they have all the different mode of travel available. Okay, so national staff can raise travel request for outside mission area, and they can include as mode of travel commercial airlines. That would be the main difference for national staff. And remember that national staff, they always need to submit their related leave request in Umoja. Okay, so we said that IUPs, they submit their leave request out of Umoja, but national staff will have to raise them in Umoja. Okay, Before we close the session, I just wanted to show to you, I know that we are already 2 minutes late, so sorry about that. I just want to reemphasize the process for expense reports. So we saw the travel request, so we spent 2 minutes more with the expense report button, okay, and then we can close this session. So we saw how to raise a travel request, and then in order to raise an expense report, we can the IUP will click on create expense report. At this stage, they don't need to select any travel request, so they just click on the expense report, and the system will drive the IUP into a new screen, right? So from this screen, the IUP have to be careful about the because if they want to submit an expense report that is related to a travel request, they need to find their travel request in this screen, right, where you see available travel requests. So in here, the system is displaying all travel requests that are fully approved and with trip and dates in the past. Remember that in order to submit that expense report linked to a travel request, the travel request needs to be fully approved and the trip and date has to be in the past. So if the IUP cannot find the travel request here, they should always go to the Travel Reward Center and check for the status and check for the trip end date. If the travel request is here, they will select the travel request they want to raise the expense report for, and they will click on Start, right? So remember, in this case, trip number is 66320. So if we create the expense report, the expense report number will still be 66320. You can see 66320, that's going to be the expense report. Because if it's a related expense report, both the travel request and the expense report share the same number. That will be the process to submit a related travel request. Sorry, a related expense report. If in the exceptional case of submitting a standalone expense report, the process will be very similar, but instead of selecting one of the travel requests, they will go to the bottom of the screen, standalone expense report, they will select official business travel, okay? Remember that this is an exceptional case and should only be used when there is no travel request submitted, okay? So, for example, if the travel request was cancelled, but still the traveler had some expenses, like for example vaccines or visa, okay, the standalone expense report can be submitted to claim for these additional expenses. Okay, so by selecting here the standalone expense report and not selecting any travel request, if the IUP clicks on Start button, the system will understand that that expense report is not linked to any travel request and will be standalone expense report. All right. So that's the difference on submitting a travel request related to an expense report related to a travel request or a standalone expense report. All right. So sorry for taking 5 minutes more of your time. Yes, so we will be sending to you both the presentation and also the recording in case you want to review any parts of this session. Okay, so I would like to thank you all for attending, and we'll keep in touch. We are based here in the RSE for the ramp up, so we'll be here 1 week more. So we are always available by email. So you can, in case you have questions or doubts, feel free to contact us. Okay. Thank you so much.